Bob Morales is our next inductee. How many fans of Bob Morales do we have? Come on. Another enigma in our sport who multi-dimensional and did many things on the bike and off the bike. And one of the guys who truly we can look back on and made significant contributions in all areas. And one of the guys I'm most proud to induct. And so we are ready to watch the video for Bob Morales. Give it up, guys.
Like many of tonight's inductees, Bob Morales has been a part of multiple disciplines in the sport of BMX. Racer, entrepreneur, freestyler, event promoter, sanctioning body president, designer, and multi-time BMX businessman. It's safe to say that when it comes to BMX, Bob has done it all. Originally a racer starting off in 1977, Morales would quickly discover the rewards of being a young entrepreneur, selling stickers in the pits at age 13. Inspired by the likes of Scott Breithaupt, R.L. Osborne, and Bob Haro, BME, Bob Morales Enterprises, was born. Then along came freestyle, and once again, the mop-haired entrepreneur was again on the cutting edge of this new type of riding. Joining up with Bob Haro to form the first ever Haro Freestyle Squad, they performed some of the earliest BMX demos and shows around the globe. After departing Haro, he'd team up with Eddie Fiola to form the MF team, who also sponsored some young kid named Mike Dominguez. So when GT Bicycles decided to make a freestyle-specific frame, Morales and Fiola would help them create the GT Performer. Morales has always had the knack for knowing when opportunity knocked, and he first formed ASPA, the Amateur Skate Park Association, in 1982. Soon, it would become the AFA, which would put on the King of the Skate Park competitions and AFA National Series events all around the country. Opportunity knocked again, and Morales answered the door. It was Rich Long from GT, who wanted to utilize Bob's multiple talents. He became chief designer for GT, while starting up Dyno products at the same time, while still running the AFA after hours. Dyno would quickly take off from making number plates and brake guards to pants and eventually freestyle frames. Dyno wouldn't be the only bike brand Morales would start, as he would go on to co-found Auburn Bicycles with former roommate Todd Huffman, where Bob designed the unique two-piece frame with a swing arm-inspired bolt-on rear triangle. Next, he'd create component brand Core, and for a short while, even had his own flatland freestyle frame under the Morales name. Today, Bob is the founder and owner of the innovative motorcycle brake lever company, ASV Inventions. We ask that you join us in celebrating the induction of the man who has done a lot for the sport we all love. Please welcome your 2018 Industry Inductee, Bob Morales.
Wow, that was cool. Thank you. Cash, great job. I love the job you do with this. What a great event. First off, I'd like to thank USA BMX for this honor and putting me where I am here. That's awesome. I want to kind of talk about a few things here. I've been around the sport for a long time, as everybody knows. And bicycle motocross pretty much started as like a bunch of kids in a parking lot mimicking motocross racing. And I've had the opportunity to watch it grow into, over the last 45 years, into an amazing sport with a lot of variations and different disciplines, you know, freestyle, BMX, and racing, and supercross, and all these other ones. And you know, today now it's a showcase in the X Games and an Olympic sport. And I'm really, really proud to be a small part of that progression, from a parking lot to a major Olympic sport. It still blows my mind when I see BMX on the Olympics on TV. It's really amazing. And of course, I do want to also recognize USA BMX for all their efforts, and with this Hall of Fame and preserving the history. It's so important. It inspires future generations. I think that's really important. I'd also like to recognize my fellow nominees. They're all amazing contributors to the industry, and you know, a couple of standouts. Howie Cohen was a big part of my career, and I learned a lot from him. And Robert Cardoza, wherever you're at, I did vote for him. Just want to let you know. Also, I'd like to thank some of my early influences. Got a lot of things to do here. First and foremost, my mom and my father, who taught me that entrepreneurial spirit in a lot of ways. Also, some of my first acquaintances, early people in my journey through this sport and industry. R.L. Osborne, Bob Osborne, Wendy Osborne, Ernie and Suzanne Alexander from the NBA, Bob Harrow, of course, and I got more to talk about Bob, Chuck Robinson, Scott Breithaupt, close to my heart, still sad about his loss. My boss, Rick Fair, one of my first bosses at a bike shop. I think you saw a picture of me with a bike shop plate on the front. Howie Cohen, as I mentioned, one of my fellow nominees up here. Jim Gennard from Oakley, big influence. And of course, without a doubt, Richard Long and Gary Turner, two big influences in my life. Also, my riding partners, I only had two of them, but they were pretty good guys. And as everyone knows, before I was an entrepreneur, I was a rider. But my two teammates, Bob Harrow, my first teammate, amazing guy, and Eddie Fiola, who can't be here, unfortunately. I wish he was, but Eddie, hope you're watching. And my business partners over the years, starting off with Richard Long and Gary Turner with Dino. They helped me out with that. Don Hoffman, who couldn't make it here, and Susan Rogers Morales, who were big help with the AFA. My partner, Todd Huffman, who's here tonight. Todd with Auburn Cycles, more distributing. That was a fun time. We had a lot of fun. Martin Charles Kirk from Core Bicycle Components. Simon Cudby, Bill Bryant from NBC Advertising, which is a company probably none of you have heard about, but they helped me with a lot of stuff. And also really important, my current partner, my wife, Mary, who's my partner in ASV right now. She's awesome, and I'd like to thank her for all she does. And also I definitely got to mention some associates that have helped me. My sister, Ricky, who came in from Tulsa to be here tonight with us. Thank you, Ricky. She worked at almost all my companies at one time or another, and she's got a lot of great stories. Also, the AFA, which I mentioned, that was a big part of my history with the sport, and I had a lot of great help. And you know, I want to mention too, on all of the stuff I did, I can't take all the credit. It's a team effort. There's always collaborators and partners and people, employees that help do this. To make it happen, it's impossible to do it yourself. And I want to recognize some of those people, some of the unsung heroes that really dedicated themselves and helped me out over the years. Ron Stebbin from Freestyle Promotions, big help on the East Coast with all the AFA events. Randy Loop, who was actually president of the of AFA after I had left. Scott and Donna Patterson from Texas, they were great affiliates, helped us out. John and Linda Lynch from New York, and all the affiliates across the USA, and some of my employees over there, including Steve Emig was a big help. Also Gork from USA BMX. He had also helped me out, did a lot of things to help us with that. Frank Skura, Chris Moeller, Dan Hannebrink, Eric Brosell, Dom Phipps. Those are some other people that in other ways have helped me out. And I really appreciate all that they've done for me. Also want to give a shout out to Ron Wilkerson, who was an outspoken person for my nomination here, mentioned it in his speech. I thought that was great. So basically, I was getting this induction into the Hall of Fame. I was kind of looking back in my career, trying to think what I could talk about. And it dawned on me that I kind of feel like the Forrest Gump of BMX, because I was at some critical mass intersections throughout the history of the sport. And so I just wanted to kind of share some of my Forrest Gump moments. There's a lot of them, and I may not get to all of them, but there was some that I'd like to mention that were pretty interesting and had a big impact on me. First and foremost was, at a 13-year-old kid, I found the local BMX track, and I became friends with this other kid named R.L. Osborne. And this is before BMX Action. This is before all that stuff. He was just my buddy. Became good friends with him, and got to know the family. We went racing together, and next thing I know, I'm there at the formation of BMX Action magazine and all that happening right in front of me as a kid, watching them start the magazine. And Bob was a fireman and was shooting pictures and writing articles for a little BMX paper. And next thing I know, they're producing magazines, and I'm in their garage helping them pack up magazines and get things going and watching tests and things. And Bob Osborne, a huge influence on me. he was amazing. All the things he did for the sport in his magazine. Also, I got to see the beginning of organized BMX. Ernie and Suzanne from the NBA, the National Bicycle Association. That was the first sanctioning body. I want to give a shout out to them. They probably were one of my biggest influences on getting the AFA going, because I saw what they did with BMX. I'm like, hey, I could do that with freestyle. There might be an opportunity there. So I wanted to give a shout out to them, because they really started it all. And of course, USA BMX for carrying it on and doing what they did since then. And with the Osbornes, I got to go to this place called the Teen Valley Center in Van Nuys. Some of you guys might remember that. And I got to see, guys like Bobby Encinas and Stu Thompson and all these racers. The Roop brothers, Eric and Robbie Roop. Every Wednesday and Friday, we'd be going to the track, just watching these guys become stars and showing up in the magazine. And I just thought that was so cool. And also, while I was hanging out with the Osbornes at their house and going to the races with them and all this stuff, and Oz got this BMX action going, he had hired this cartoonist artist guy named Bob Harrow, who showed up at the house and started doing work for the magazine. And he was amazing. We all just were in awe of him. He was so talented. He could draw, he could design stuff. And not only that, he could do these tricks on his bicycle that RL and I had never seen before. And, I got to witness Bob Harrow in the Osborne's driveway doing tricks on a BMX bike, and then it morphing into this sport. That was amazing. And watching Bob Harrow make number plates on the stove at the Osborne house, before Harrow. This is all before Harrow. It was called factory plates. And I think Bob even made me a custom handmade number plate, and man, do I wish I still had that plate. I do not have it. And I think I've mentioned this before. Back in those days, when you were a rider, you didn't think about memorabilia and keeping that stuff. You had some amazing stuff back then, but didn't keep it. So, and while I was hanging out with the Osbornes, I got to see the first, Torker frame show up, and Oz showing us, and, the first Redline forks and Moto Mags and Tough Necks and Oakley grips and on and on and on. Just, I got to see so many firsts. And again, I felt like Forrest Gump, like I was there watching all this stuff happen and hanging out with the original BMX action trick team and watching them do their thing. And then, also learning about sneaking into skateboard parks, because at first they didn't let bicycles in skateboard parks and they weren't too happy about it. So we had to sneak in after hours or whatever, get in there any way we could and ride. But it was so fun. It was so awesome. And that was a big part of things. And also getting to meet Scott Breithaupt was amazing. I ran across him, I don't know where, at the races or somewhere. He kind of took me under his wing. He helped design the logo of my very first company, a little sticker company. I was selling stickers out at the BMX track. Scott got me started with my first little business, helped me design the logo. He was awesome. And I owe a lot to Scott as one of my early influences. Bob Harrow, another one that as I was going to these skate parks, I would go to these competitions, and I had kind of run across Bob, and this is, I think, 1981. And he asked me to join him for this tour. He was going to do a BMX tour across the United States in 1981. And I was like, sure, why not? Let's do it. And so I was so fortunate to be a part of that first Harrow tour, one of Bob's first teammates, and traveling the country. That was amazing. And, like the other nominees we mentioned, the rental car stories and all the funny stuff that go along with that. It's crazy, but we had a great time. And then I started, I was so influenced by Bob Harrow, Bob Osborne, all these guys. So I was constantly thinking, what can I do? What can I start up? I want to do business. And so I'm selling stickers, doing this stuff, and I'm seeing all these opportunities. And next thing I'm thinking, I want to start putting on contests, and I'm going to these different skate parks. And I'm at this Lakewood skate park, and there's this really cool kid there that's ripping it up, and his name's Eddie Fiola. And we become really good friends. And I'm on the Harrow team, and I mentioned Eddie to Bob, and Bob hires him, puts him on the team, and we're doing shows, and we just hit it off, became great friends. And then, as the intro mentioned, Eddie and I decided we could do our own team, and kind of moved on to Kuahara, and that's where I met Howie Cohen, and he helped us out and did some really cool stuff with Howie. I got to be involved with this bike that was tied in with this movie called E.T. at the time that became a pretty big movie. That was pretty cool. And promoting those bikes. And then along the way, I'm building my business, and I'm buying stickers and T-shirts, and GT Bicycles is kind of coming along. So I go visit them, and I'm like, hey, would you guys sell me stickers and T-shirts and stuff to sell? And I get to meet Richard Long. and we hit it off, and I start becoming a customer of theirs, and next thing I know, they're kind of influencing me, like, hey, you should make motor or BMX gear, like plates and stuff like that, and we'll work with you on our team and all that. And that was the start of Dyno. That's what kind of got Dyno going, was that opportunity with Richard Long and Gary Turner over at GT. And then, they saw freestyle growing, and it's like, hey, can you guys come up with a frame for us? And Eddie and I get together and we design this frame, the GT Performer, and boom, it takes off. It does well. And next thing you know, all these companies and the whole sport is growing, and AFA is growing. We're doing contests, and it was just, I look back at it and it's like, wow, that's tiring. We were doing a lot of stuff back then, touring and promoting, putting on events. It was just amazing. And during the AFA, I got to watch these kids, like Eddie Fiola, Mike Dominguez, Brian Blyther, Ron Wilkerson, Rick Moliterno, one of our other nominees here, or inductees, Woody Hitson, Matt Hoffman, Dave Mira. These guys were all super unknown. And then, these contests and things, they start becoming superstars and traveling the world. And it was just amazing to watch these riders develop. It was so much fun. And I remember we got a call to do a Mountain Dew commercial, and RL and Eddie and Ron Wilkerson and I did this Mountain Dew commercial, and it was like the first time BMX was on TV on a national commercial. So there's just a lot of really cool stuff. I through Scott Breithaupt, I met this salesman of his named Todd Huffman, and we had hit it off, and I think we became roommates, and we're hanging out, and we were just talking about doing stuff, and we decided to start this little company called More Distributing, selling dyno stuff, because I had sold dyno to GT, but we had an opportunity to still sell it. And that's what spawned Auburn. Todd and I had an idea about making our own bikes, and that spawned Auburn, and that whole thing happened. I also had a little agency doing design work in that, and there was this young kid named Chris Moeller that would help me out and doing things for us. And in my little studio, Chris designed the logo for S&M and did his first decals and bikes and his ads for S&M. And I had no idea where that was going to go, but turns out Chris turned out to be one of the best businessmen I think I've seen in the industry since Richard Long and people like that. I mean, Chris Moeller is pretty amazing, really, really amazing guy. And also at my little design studio, that's where we designed the Auburn frame. There's just a lot of really cool stuff. And on and on. There's just so many experiences like that, and not all good ones. There was definitely probably one of my darkest days, but I think it's kind of appropriate to mention it tonight. And on July 12th of 1996, I was one of the first people to find out about Richard Long having an accident on his motorcycle, and I had to be involved to kind of notify the company and the family and help the authorities with that. And it just really hit me. And it was weird too that the day before that, I had spent the day with Richard catching up with him because we hadn't seen each other for a while. And that was a really dark day, but it was, I just thought it was so interesting that he shared all that with me, and then he was gone. And it was almost like I was in denial. Like I couldn't believe he was gone. He was such an influence on me. And to this day, I still think about Richard. He was one of the biggest influences on me. And besides my own brands, I've had the great honor to work with like Bob Howard Designs and Oakley and GT and Hutch and all these different companies, and gained experience from all them. And I want to thank them and what they've done for me. And been able to live my passion, be an entrepreneur almost my whole life, other than when I'd sell a company and go to work for them for a while. But I've been so fortunate with that. And I want to thank everybody that's helped me do that, because it's been awesome, and I'm still doing it and enjoying it. And it's not easy, and there's a lot of struggles, but it's what I do. And again, thank you to everyone for this great honor. And I hope to keep living my dream and doing this for as long as I can. Thank you.